Hello, guys. We are in Genesis 47, part 3. Okay. Here we go. And we're in verse 24. Okay. And it shall come to pass. Genesis 47, verse 24. No, I'm not sponsored yet. This is not. Okay, here we go. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give. 24. Genesis 47, 24. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. Okay. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. Okay. Interesting. All right. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day. That is 26. 47, 26. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth part, except the land of the priests, only which became not Pharaoh's. So, some interesting stuff going on here, and this is definitely some imagery going on here. Okay, obviously. So I'm not going to say anything yet. Only goal we have today is to finish out 47, and then we'll do some footnotes on that and stuff like that. So really easy going right here at this channel. We just kick it and, no pressure, just get it done. All right, so 47. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen. Now, God, to me, this is the image of, just something that come to mind. Okay, everything's God's. Period. All right, our whole existence, every breath we take, every step we take, everything you lay your eyes on, all the sun that's shining, the cold, the hot, everything that we experience is God's. Okay. End of story. Point blank, period. We need to realize that. Okay, next point is that the only people that get to keep their stuff all together is the priests. Now that says a lot to me, because they're doing the Lord's work. Not necessarily these priests, but it's just an image. Okay, if they're doing what the Lord's supposed to do, that's basically the only way that you're existing in a manner that is acceptable. So I'm just throwing my stuff on there. Yeah. Other than that, it's 80-20. I mean, it's more than a tenth that they're giving. But it's not about tithing. I mean, that's not what it's about. It's about the kingdom. It's about the kingdom. Okay, he's giving them food for them to survive, to further the kingdom. But guess what? It's a typical image of God's stuff because God is always advancing, like I said yesterday. God's going to run that check up. You know, wherever he's doing. It's not really about money, so to speak. It's about spiritual stuff. Money can help further that stuff, yeah. It can hurt it too. All right, here we go. And the time, no. So, and to me, it's the image of God, y'all, because I don't know if y'all watched the previous videos, but everything prior to this we've done. Okay, period. End of story. It's an image of God because he handled this. He handled everything with such finesse. I mean, he's just agile where he's handling stuff. Oh, okay, this is coming up. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, here you go. La da da. Oh, you're completely in our hands. Uh-huh. Here you go. Huh? Say what? Cha-ching. You know, God, he's laying everything out so finesse. Jacob is finessing stuff with ease. He's got everything in his hands. At the same time, it's hard to explain, man. But God is on top. You can trust that. You can trust that. God is on top. You can trust that. It never was a debate whether that was going to happen. And when you see that and you realize you're on the right team and you realize that it's pretty cool and he is pretty cool and he never stops being more cool, that's cool. And when you realize that, it's like, whoa, I'm not just talking, I'm not just preaching. This is just the way God is. God is always excelling and advancing in directions that are abounding and exceeding, that are always going to be. It's kind of cool, but knowing that that's the direction it's going, it's never, yeah. So let me just chill. All right, now, but this is a perfect example of that. Of how he's continuing to put leverage down. He's leveraging. And that's God. But it's a beautiful leverage. It's not a leverage that's going to be. It's hard to explain, man. It's a miracle of God. But God is always leveraging in a direction. Let me put it like this. It's unavoidable, but you wouldn't want to miss it. You don't want to be on the wrong end of this leverage, okay? You wouldn't want to miss it because he's supposed to be in you too. Okay, so you're going to be in contact with this. It's unavoidable. It's the catalyst. It's the catalyst, okay? It's the principal thing in reality. Okay, so you're going to be in contact with this. You just want to make sure you're on the receiving end of this and not the you want to be the one laying the hit, not the one taking the hit. There's going to be a hit, if that makes any sense. There's going to be a hit, man. There's going to be a blow made, and that's just God living. God is alive. Okay, God is making his rounds. God is doing his thing. Okay. So you want to be the one leveraging the hit, not the one absorbing the hit. It's going to be one or two things. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. You know, there's really no other option. You're either going to be the one making your stance, you know, leveraging the hit, or the one caught off guard, absorbing the hit. There is no other option. I hope that, I don't know if that helps or not, but I'm learning too. Because that's the way the world works. Light and darkness are in contact with each other. They are actually happening. They are in contact. There is really a contact going on there. This is not flag football. Okay. I tried to tell y'all in the first video, you're being hunted. Hey, Gracie. Hey. What are you doing? Gracie, what are you doing? Huh? Come out from back there. Let's show y'all. Hey, Gracie. I know, it's kind of messy around here. I just wanted to show you Gracie the God. Gracie, oh. Forgive me, Lord. Okay, guys, so yeah, I think we're covering some important stuff because that's what we're getting out of it. Now let's go on. And Israel, and Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt. 47:27. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein. And they had and grew and multiplied exceedingly. Okay? I was just talking about the exceedingly. I was just talking about that. In 28. You know, and that's an image to me, guys. Also, guys, when we're doing the Lord's work and we're on the right path, we actually have spiritual stuff that is real. I mean, for example, to me, this is a channel. I really have a way to talk to people. This is a real thing that matters in the eyes of God, if you ask me. It's building. We're trying to get stuff up. You know, we're trying to reach. We're trying to build followers. We're trying to get people to see the message. And all the content is there. This is a real spiritual piece of. This is a real possession of something with all the content we've made and all the video we've dropped. To me, that's priceless. You can't put a price on that. For me. It does a lot for me. It grounds me every day. You know, this is a real thing for me. And I know it's not what he's talking about, but to me, that shows me that when you have possessions, this is a real thing. This is not just some selfish thing. This is something that means something to God, if you ask me. So here we go. Now, it's important to note that to me because it says they had possessions. It's not just, you know, the Bible doesn't say that a lot about possessions. So when you have possessions, it's actually something, you know. It's not just whatever BS you got going on. So let's see. We're almost done with 47, and I like how we did this because we don't have to rush. And the time drew nigh. No. And no, 28. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. The whole age of Jacob was 147 years. Okay, 29. 47, 29. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight. And he called his son Joseph and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. Now, to me, this is the image, guys. Jesus, when he knew he was going to die, so he called the disciples to him and said, hey, y'all got to get with the program. This is I'm supposed to be living in you in the temple. When the kingdom is here, don't look here nor there to find it. It's within you guys. It's within y'all. He said, this is to me an image of a possible image. I'm not saying it was him, but this is what I get out of this. Is that, God is telling us, deal kindly with me. I'm about to die. I'm about to go. I mean, in the physical, he came back, of course, for a minute, but it's almost an image of, hey, he's telling them time is running short. I'm going to give y'all some critical information about how to act, and of course, it was for the worst of the world. It wasn't just for them. They were going to write the gospel and all that. All this was going to perpetuate into what we have today, which is quite vast. The widespread thing that we have here with the word. But yeah, that's an image to me of, hey, deal kindly with me, the Lord. Don't grieve the Spirit. Let him come in. Let him do his work. Give him a place to stay. Like I said, there's contact going on. You're either going to be on the receiving end of this hit or you're going to be giving the hit. I don't mean like literally hitting somebody, but you literally have to be punching Satan in the chin. It said you'll be one of those things. It said he'll strike your heel, and this comes the thing. It said you will bruise his head and he will strike your heel. So there's contact going on now, guys. Just throwing something out that comes to mind with the scripture. It didn't say, oh, y'all be yelling at each other. No, it said, you will bruise his head and he will strike your heel. There's contact going on, y'all. Spiritual contact. Somebody's getting hit. Please be the one laying that blowout with your foot planted. And, you're the one driving that force, not the one receiving it. Because it's going to be either way. Make sure that you're the one with your foot planted in a position of poise that you might have to defend yourself and take a hit. No, I'm no Bruce Lee or nothing like that, but Walker, Texas Ranger, I'm nothing like that. I'm just saying, when you make sure that you're the one not caught off guard by this stuff. You're being informed. I'm telling you now, there's a blow being made. An eternal blow. Now, guys, get in line with this. You need to make sure that you're spiritually fit with this stuff. All right? So, Okay, and 30. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt. Out of Egypt. Bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. (31) And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him, and Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. The bed's head. Hey. Stay. So that's it for 47. We're doing good. Took us 3 days to finish that chapter, but that's okay. My current study, guys. Well, first let's go to the footnotes. Okay, 47. All right, bear with me as I read these footnotes because I don't trust all footnotes, so I don't just read them out loud like that. So bear with me as I read these footnotes, and I'll give you... Okay. Now, it's a reminder that, it said Joseph primed the Pharaoh, for when he took 5 of his brothers and he prepped them, just like a lawyer would prep his client before he goes into the courtroom most of the time. They're supposed to be prepped. It's a diplomatic thing, but that's basically what we're doing here with the word. We're being prepped up, so. But it's important to note that that's reality. So, we've been given the criteria of what we're going to be judged on. We've been given the criteria and what to expect and what God is going to be looking at, what he likes, what he doesn't like. We've been given the criteria. But it's more than that. We have a spirit in us and stuff like that to guide us, to help us. But that's what we're basically headed to. We're basically on trial with God. Okay? We're basically headed to a judgment position. We're headed to basically an interrogation, and that's just a thing that must happen. Okay, so take it or leave it. And it's happening as we speak. It's not like you can just whatever. Okay, here we go. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh twice. And Okay, so Abraham lived 175 years. It's comparing. Okay, so while when Pharaoh asked Jacob how old he was 130 years old at the time. Okay. He ended up living and this is just some fun factoids, but he ended up living 17 years after that, before he died. Um, and it's noting that, longevity of life was recognized as divine favor. Okay. And it says here that comparably, Abraham lived to be 175 and Isaac 180. So, and earlier he answered, he said, few and evil have been the years of my life. And I guess he's alluding to, or I guess he's talking about the way he did Esau, maybe. And it says that here. His treatment of Esau and how he deceived him, out of his birthright and stuff like that. It wasn't really very nice the way he did that, but he came out of the field, he was thirsty and he was famished. So he said, "Hey, here's a bowl of soup." Instead of just giving him the bowl of soup, he basically convinced him to sell his birthright through his own devices. So I guess he's counting that as evil, and he may be right. That may be why he didn't live that long as other people. But that's what he's suggesting. Few and evil have been the days of my life. That's what he says. Interesting. So he's basically saying, "Oh, I'm few. My days are few because of my conduct." And that's, he may be onto something there. And he's placing stuff on the supernatural, the consequences, the karma behind it. Okay. Which goes to show his world outlook. Everything was connected to God and everything. So, it's showing that it's suggesting that sojourning implies they were always looking to something more. It was never. They were never done. They were never so comfortable where they felt like they reached their peak. And that goes for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They said sojourning implies, the word sojourning implies that they're never done. They're always looking to what God has for them next, and that's a good thing, important to know that. A city with foundations. And when I think of a heavenly city with foundations, I'm not saying that's the ultimate destination, but that's one of them. Just prepared for us. It may be the ultimate destination, but when I think of that, I think of something that's not floating through space on a ball. It's something with foundations. And that's a kind of a side topic that I'm on, but yeah, we're literally floating floating through space on a ball, subject to a lot of things that we really don't have control over. But on the other hand, I believe when we get to heaven, or where heaven is, It's not subject to outside forces. It's not floating around subject to other things. It is literally in another dimension where there is no other forces that can hurt it. Unlike here, where we're more in a precarious, vulnerable state, floating through space. Don't get me wrong, stuff can happen, but I mean, yeah, that's what, when they say city with foundation, that's what that means to me. We're not, wherever heaven is, it's not floating around through space. It's more permanent. That's just my guess, my theology. I don't know. It makes sense to me. You got to get out of the box, thinking, okay, well, just because we're floating around on a ball through space, it has to be like that everywhere. No, it doesn't have to be like that everywhere. Okay? Period. I think this realm is more of like a probationary area where things are being cultivated and tested, and basically like thinking something over. He's basically like this is like more like a experimental stage for God and his thought. Not experimental, bad choice of words, but it's just basically just like a up in the air type of thing. Literally. Yeah. So I may be dead on with myself, man. Watch out. So nevertheless, we're here, but we want to make sure we're going to be in a place that God is going to. God, never mind. Just I know where I'm going with this. And that's one of my topics that I'm discussing. Let me finish these footnotes about my research. I'm researching a lot of different stuff, and I'm digging in. About Calvinism and stuff like that. Dispensationalism, hyper dispensationalism. Reformed, Lutheran, R.C. Sproul, there's a lot of conflict within the church. I mean, there's been a lot of disagreements within theology over the years, over the centuries, and I'm studying this stuff. Once saved, always saved, apostasy. I'm really digging in about what this is. And it's important because I want to understand fully about what's going on, about the right way. And what I'm thinking, I think I have a pretty good idea on it, what's going on, just from what I see so far. They take scriptures like Romans chapter 8 and 9, and there's a lot of disagreements in that stuff. A lot of disagreements on how we're supposed to look at stuff. So without speaking too much on that yet, I have stuff to say about that. But I think that what we're doing is, as a people, I don't think there's really no clear-cut answer on once saved, always saved. I think we're asking the wrong questions. I think we're trying to place answers on stuff that's not supposed to be answered. We're placing questions and stuff where there's not supposed to be a question. So when I say that, I think that a lot of the stances that people are taking on stuff is a fruitless endeavor. And sometimes it's better just not to ask a question in that area because it only causes confusion. So when I say that, I say that there's really that. Now I'm not done with my research. When I say that, a lot of these theological rabbit holes are true in themselves, but like election and irresistible grace and tulip, all that stuff doesn't necessarily take away from the other side either. So each side, because they can have a merging of the two, only because you place too much emphasis on certain areas. It can be both, but what happens is we look through our lens. Now, I'm not done with my research, but to me, it doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively one or the other. They can both mesh together on certain factors. Okay? They can both mesh together on certain factors. For example, free will and irresistible grace and, absolute depravity and all that. There can be a merging of free will, but, one side might say, oh, no, you can't. That nullifies this, or this side might say, no, this nullifies that. What I'm trying to tell you is, guys, not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to negate each other. If I'm making any sense. I mean, to me, it makes sense. So when I look at all this, it's strengthening my faith. And I haven't taken any sides, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of leaning more towards the tulip. I'm kind of leaning kind of like more towards the Calvinist side. But I'm not excluding their side either, because it doesn't necessarily have to be black or white. Because God doesn't have to look at stuff like we look at it. So, and I'll get into more of that later, but I'm kind of leaning toward a more new position than I'm seeing. I'm seeing one totally on this field, and I'm seeing another totally on this side. But the way I look at it is more like a mesh of the two. Calvinist, anti-Calvinist. So where my view is that, yeah, there's election and irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints, and all that, where you can't really fall away and all that. And on the other side, there's, it's all our choice, and it's us doing it, type of deal. But to me, it's more of like a mixture of the two. So I'm still learning, but I think I'm in a good place with this. Really. I don't think necessarily, if one is more right than the other, but it doesn't necessarily exclude the other side. So basically what I think is that little do they know, each side, I mean, I'm sure that some of them know it, but each side actually includes some of the other side. So the Calvinists actually have some of the other side included in theirs. But they just over-defined it on this side. And the anti-Calvinists, whatever that is, Protestant, whatever it is, the other side, the Calvinists, they're throwing out, the anti-Calvinists are throwing out the Calvinist side. But really, the Calvinists have a lot of right stuff in there too. It's hard to explain. I'm working on it. But, yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be exclusively one side. I think what we need is a revised position. And let the word speak for itself. But at the same time, one side can kind of mess you up. But, Dr., I think his name is James White. I think he's a Calvinist, but he's it can be taken to extremes that aren't really, the other sides can be taken to extremes where it doesn't really line up with Scripture, it doesn't really make good sense when it's taken to extremes. So I think what we have here is an unhealthy radicalness on each side. So, and what happens is I think it's a misunderstanding of free will and election and God in general. In the role that we play and the role that he plays, I think it's a big misunderstanding on that. So what happens is a lot of times I think we've made assumptions and questions were areas that weren't supposed to be questions, and when that happens, it throws off the entire message. It throws off the whole ideology of God. Now, this is just me speaking. This is just my theology, because I'm working out my theology. Because the God I know swooped in where I didn't want him. The God that I know swooped in on me where I could have never found him on my own. That's the God that I know. And so that's more leaning towards a Calvinist type side. Now I'm still doing my research. I'm not saying I'm a Calvinist. I'm saying that both sides have their values, have good stuff that lines up with Scripture. Both sides do. I think certain areas of Scripture have adopted ideologies that that kind of like. Anyway, let me read these footnotes. Because, each side have their opinions about the other side that aren't necessarily right on. And also each side has their stuff that can go in a bad direction too. Or can do a disservice. Each side has areas where they can do the word a disservice. So what happens is we have a foundational issue with our ideologies on this stuff. And some things aren't meant to get technical. Some things aren't meant to get technical. And that's what happens. We try to place worldly technicalities on this stuff in our own personal views of black and white. Everything isn't meant to be taken to such a level. That's why I say each side has their bad areas. Can have their bad areas. So when I look at it, I say, hold on, okay, I see what's going on here. Somebody has to be right, not necessarily, but I know where I'm at in my life, and I know it's real. So let's not let these differences tear down what's going on in my personal life. Because I know I don't place too many standards on God of what I think he's supposed to be, because I realize maybe we're asking questions in the wrong area. Maybe we place too much criteria and it's causing confusion in a certain area. Some things words can't express. Okay, I feel like I'm making some things words can't express. The love of Christ. I mean, you can try. The cross, elect. When we try to explain some of this stuff, it can get hairy. You're dealing with supernatural miracles here. That's going on here. Everything can't be expressed in a way that's going to make sense to us. Because we're trying to take something magical and miracle, and we're trying to make it look doctrinal. And that can't always happen. To me. So I'm doing my research. I'm not claiming a side on that. It's not the only thing I study. But that's really what I'm seeing is one of the main differences. And it doesn't necessarily have to exclusively be one. And a lot of it is based upon, what's God in control of and stuff like that. But I'm getting there. But my position, guys, is not necessarily exclusively one or the other. That's where I think the problem is. I think we're asking questions in the wrong areas, or we're not asking the right questions. The questions that we're asking is necessarily not a valid question, because we're trying to place standards on it that fit into our world and perspective. So that's where the confusion comes from. Okay, we're asking questions in the wrong areas, or not asking the right questions. So it shouldn't be you're asking this, which comes doctrines out of that question that aren't necessarily beneficial. We should be asking this instead of this, and get rid of that question. Let's ask this question, okay, and throw out that question, okay, because we don't understand free will based upon the whole term is a misunderstanding to me. The whole free will thing and the whole sovereignty thing and all that, and grace and all those things are greatly misunderstood. They shouldn't really necessarily be separate things. Really, it's just God's will. Okay, but what happens is we have all these different doctrines and teachings on these different topics, and we try to make an equation with all these things factored in like they're different things. Okay, but to me, that's not the case. If I'm getting anywhere, it's all really just one thing a lot of times. And I'm not using specifics. I'm just giving you a general outline of how things can go left. Misunderstandings of words. Doctrines based upon words. Churches based upon certain words. Sect based upon certain words, but really the word is misunderstood or taken to an extreme or whatever. And what happens is we end up doing all this and we're not really growing. But I'm doing my research, and I'm pretty sure God has given me, a discernment to hear when somebody is more correct, or to hear some. I'm not saying always, but I would like to think, and I'm pretty sure God has given me a gift to discern confusion and extraness, but based upon truth and simplicity. God has given me a gift to see that. Just because somebody's rambling and talking doesn't mean that they're actually doing any good. Or if it's on posted TV or something like that. Doesn't mean it's necessarily right. And God has given me an ear, to hear that, I believe. And one doesn't necessarily have to completely exclude the other. There may be parts of truth. There may be somebody who's more right than the other one. Okay? Doesn't necessarily mean that person is completely wrong. Somebody may be more right than the other person. So what happens is you might say, "Hey, bro, you're not completely wrong. It turns out, guys, both of you guys are right. Both of y'all are right, but you're wrong separately. Okay, you guys need to come together and realize that you had a misunderstanding about the stuff. Really, both of y'all are right. You're only wrong because you're apart. So both of y'all are right. Y'all just need to merge together and have the new understanding, a better understanding about stuff. Realize that you're asking, So that's what I'm saying. It's just different ways to look at stuff. It doesn't have to necessarily be, So, but no, they don't look at it like that a lot of times. It's a lot of times, oh, you're wrong, I'm right. No, both of y'all are right in a lot of areas. If you could just merge the two and understand you had a misunderstanding about a lot of stuff, and you're placing questions and defining terms and stuff like that, but everything can't be expressed in words, and a lot of things are misunderstood. taken to extremes. One side saying you can't have a personal relationship with God because you're chosen, and the other side saying that, it's extreme. It taken to extremes. Both sides don't necessarily have to be exclusively true. So, the only reason there's extremes taken is because they're trying to place God's outlook upon man's understanding. With man's understanding of things. Two different things. You can't do that with God. A lot of times. And one guy had a good illustration. He said, look, the way my ideology works is I take from God and work my way down to man. He said, what you do is you take your outlook from man all the way up to God. And he said, what happens is when we come down and we meet in the middle, there's two different things, two different perspectives. I thought that was a good example. And he's basically saying what I'm saying is, hey, look, you're not necessarily wrong about a lot of stuff, but you need to understand this from God's perspective, not from your perspective. And that's basically what I'm saying. He's saying you're not completely wrong, but don't sit here and write the book from your angle. Let's look at it from where it's coming from up here. And that kind of says like what I'm saying. And I like him, Dr. James White. I think he's a Calvinist, but I like a lot of the stuff he's saying. And I'm not done. I just started watching him. I've seen him over the years, so I'm not done. So I like Dr. James White. I think it's James White. So I'm learning and stuff, and I'm not afraid of reaching out to these people personally and asking them and talking to them. I'm not against that. But God is working. So guys, I'm going to let y'all go. We'll finish the footnotes tomorrow. I think we're on 48 tomorrow. So guys, we're on YouTube at Preach Facts. We're on TikTok at Preach Facts 7. And I'm just letting you know where I'm at. We know with my research, I research a lot of stuff: atheism, evolution, history, theology, philosophy, debates within religion. I'm doing a lot, but I'm trying to get the meat on the bone so I can do my job properly. Because I plan on being a speaker in a field. Well, I am a speaker. Here I am, but I plan on being a beast of a speaker one day, a theologian where I can stand in the paint and for the kingdom. Okay, so guys, thank you. You can reach out in the inbox on TikTok at PreachFacts7, or you can hit the Gmail at PreachFacts7 at gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.